All right, welcome guys to the Zero Governance Call number 9. We'll be discussing the state of the sovereign dollar and ways we could potentially create demand for it, and see how the Zero protocol is maintained. So we have Yago with a stream ready for us. Feel free to take the stage, Yago. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Overall, I would say that we haven't seen huge changes over the course of the last 2 weeks, to the point where I would, at this point, personally think that perhaps we should reduce the frequency of these meetings to once monthly. But I will now go over some of the key data points. There are the relevant things happening. So first, let's talk about the sovereign dollar peg. I'm gonna suggest that we need a change here. The the best measure we could have here, which I think is missing, is the oracle price for the dollar. But focusing on the price that we're seeing versus our other assets, we have seen some volatility, with sovereign dollars sometimes exceeding a dollar worth of assets in these other, as priced in XUSD, DOC, and RUSDT, and sometimes being below. But I would point out that what we're seeing in general for stablecoins in the protocol is that they're trending slightly above a dollar. Actually, one way to see that is if we look at the value of USDT and DOC, we see and have been seeing them consistently being priced above a dollar, at least in XUSD terms, which shouldn't be the case. And this is due to trading fluctuations and also an overall lack of supply currently that we're seeing in stablecoins in the system. So while we have seen prices drop over the course of this period to as much as 4 cents below, if we're looking at the last 2 weeks, it's been within the range of at least 2 cents, frequently trending above. And when you add in that we are about 1 cent above oracle price frequently, the actual fluctuations from the dollar peg have mitigated substantially. So I'm going to move on then to Zero Analytics, and we are seeing origination fees at 5.2% and redemption fees at 1.24%. The reason that that's happening is because we are seeing redemptions. So we've been seeing a heightened amount of redemptions over the course of the last week. And this is, you can see that this started on June 30th. And what we also see is that we had significant originations on June 25th, June 27th, and June 30th. So overall, we saw over this period of time here, where there is a gap in redemptions, a significant increase in sovereign dollars entering the system. And I think that was happening while the price of Bitcoin was going up. The price of Bitcoin has been flat or slightly declining over the course of the last week. And so these redemptions are associated, I suspect, with an overhang resulting from the steep increase in price. Now, I would go so far as to suggest that is actually expected behavior. We'd probably want to see redemptions being a smaller ratio of the total outstanding supply, and that will happen almost naturally as outstanding supply grows, and as more sources of demand, sort of organic demand, are generated. But I think we can expect to always see an increase in demand for originations when Bitcoin prices are increasing, and a slight stagnation or decline. And sort of that is when the Bitcoin price is decreasing. And so I think that is within the bounds of expected behavior, at least directionally. One other aspect of this, obviously, is that all of this activity continues to drive protocol revenue. And so looking at that, we continue to see max stakers earning well above 25% APR in Bitcoin terms. Again, this is a 90-day look back. And so we are now 9 months in to having seen so APR started exceeding 12%. Sorry, let me try and fix that. That wasn't what I intended to do. Staking APR has been elevated now for a significant period of time. One thing to point out is that this 27% is looking back at 90 days, whereas realized 30-day APR has decreased somewhat. So, for example, max stakers now are looking at about 16%, but still extremely profitable to be a staker at these times, and I think it's impressive that we've managed, and I think should build confidence that we've managed to maintain protocol revenue for such a long period of time. So that's where we are. I can look into more specific details based on your requests, but I think that gives an overview of where we stand. So I'd like to open it up to comment, question, or any points of discussion. So I'd like to make a few comments. I think we've seen and are seeing activity which is likely, we've been saying now that we should expect to take several months to be able to significantly elevate the amount of stablecoin availability or stablecoin supply within the system, and that this will happen incrementally. And we spoke about a number of different paths towards that. We've spoken about the incentive curves in Babelfish. Parties who would begin to acquire sovereign dollar to hold as a censorship-resistant and safe form of Bitcoin. Sorry, of dollars. More bridges and integration with other protocols. And there's movement on all of these fronts. We had Exodus announce that they would be adding sovereign dollar to their treasury. I expect they're going to be looking to add additional amounts of sovereign dollar. There are others who have expressed, at least on a casual basis, interest in doing the same. The incentive curves have been around the corner now for a long time, so I can't speak to that, but they will be live sometime in the near future, and within the various community channels, people from all walks of the community have been suggesting potential directions and connections to protocols and other applications that we can work with. And so we're seeing movement on all of these fronts. I don't think that until those incremental changes happen, anything really fundamental can change, with the exception of price, market fluctuations driving demand up or down, or potentially large holders making sort of idiosyncratic moves. But fundamentally, I don't think we will see changes in the system. And so I think at this point, my recommendation would be twofold. One is, I don't think we should introduce changes at this point. We have something of a steady state, and I would rather focus our energies on building out those, that connective tissue and those use cases that we want to see, and having us as a community focus on those things rather than trying to micromanage the parameters at this time. And second, if that is the case, and there is a sense of agreement around that, then I would also suggest reducing the frequency of these meetings at this point to once a month. Is there anyone who would object to that, or either of those 2 points? Yeah. So I think we can look here at this period. Oh, sorry. No, it's not working for me. All right, we'll just keep it the way it is. If we look at this period here, which is basically the last month, the difference in pricing between here and the month previous is significant. We saw a stabilization of the peg. Now, as I mentioned, there is an impact that I think we should expect to see, that when Bitcoin price is declining, we will see some decline or some pressure for decline in the sovereign dollar price. And this is likely driven by the AMM. So the way the AMM is structured is such that as people are purchasing Bitcoin, which is what people do when the price of Bitcoin goes up, even if merely as an arbitrage activity, they are changing the balance between Bitcoin and sovereign dollar, which draws additional sovereign dollar into the AMM, just merely as an arbitrage act, in order to maintain the 50-50 ratio. The opposite effect happens when the price of Bitcoin declines, which is what we've seen over the last week. It was a slight decline, so it's hard to know how much of the impact to attribute to that. The second thing I would point out is that the relative depth of the AMM, and we've spoken for 2 years now about the limitations of AMM structure. The AMM structure we have introduces slippage rapidly, and particularly when the ratio between the transaction size and the funds within the AMM is small, right? Less than, say, 1 to 25 or 1 to 50. So For example, a $100,000 transaction performed as a single transaction in our AMM today would move the price 5% or 5 cents. So when we see a 1 or 2% move, that is easily accounted for by the mere act of transacting. When it remains more consistent, it's because the arbitrage opportunity is not being picked up more quickly. That's the best explanation I'm able to provide now. The one counterpoint to that, which I would bring up, is the period prior to mid-April. But I think that the arbitrage opportunity was easier to take advantage of them, both because of a greater availability of DOC or dollar on chain, and in particular, a greater availability of imported stablecoins in Babelfish.
I have a question. Thanks. So I'm a holder of the Sovryn Dollar, and part of my daily routine is to go into the swap feature and check the dollar's peg price. And as of about a week ago, that dollar listing has been replaced with some others. I was wondering if we could get back.
Sorry, the dollar listing was replaced where?
In the swap feature, there are 4 chyrons show price of things like mint and things like that. Dollar used to be there, and now it's gone.
You mean in alpha?
It's in alpha.
Would this be in trade under swap? Sorry? I think spot. You might. I'm not sure if you mean spot or swap. I can't hear you.
Swap.
Swap. Okay. So and then you look at RBTC to Sovryn Dollar.
I look at dollar all by itself. See what its peg is. It used to be listed there.
Oh, I see. Okay. John, can you shed some light on this?
I'm not aware of there having been any sort of intentional change here.
So you're adding Sovryn Dollar to both sides?
No, I'm saying not putting anything in the swap. Above the swap feature, there are 4.
Oh, yeah, yes. Okay. All right, now I understand. Okay, sure.
It used to show dollar and XUSD.
Okay, I wasn't aware of this change. Yeah. I'll ask.
Okay.
What's in the end?
You should still, though, be able to see that information fairly easily here on the stats page.
Where?
So if you just click on Sovereign Alpha, really, it will take you to this page, which is the stats page, and then the first thing that you'll see is 24-hour change in the various assets, as well as 7-day change, so 24-hour and 7-day.
Ecco, rimani qua, eh?
I'm GGLL91. If you could mute yourself, please. Any other points that anyone would like to raise?
Yes. This is T-Bone. I had a question. I remember back in the day, I haven't seen it for a while, but it used to be, it would come up on, I guess, the alpha or what have you, that there was an arbitrage opportunity for, I guess, RBTC or, I guess, different components, different tokens. Do we not have the ability, because we also talked about, the slippage in the dollar trade and what have you. Do we not have the capacity as of right now to do something very similar to for a dollar? That arbitrage opportunity comes up and is posted up, I guess, in the swap portion or something to that effect?
Did you used to take advantage of that? Would you act on the basis of those notifications?
I had, yes.
Well, I think we don't have very good ability to track user activity within the DApp due to privacy concerns, and so there's relatively little information that sort of is available in terms of sort of what is driving user actions. At some point, it was decided to remove that in order to remove complexity, and because it was assumed that two things had happened. First of all, more automated bots seemed to be engaged in arbitrage in the system, and second, we didn't think that many users were probably taking advantage of it. It's really interesting to hear that you were, and if it is something that users do take advantage of, it might be something to consider introducing into DEP 2.0. But at this point, in terms of changes to DEP 1, we basically have a code freeze.
Right. So I really didn't want to, bring up certain things because I don't want to beat a dead horse. And I imagine like some of these topics are going to come up, tomorrow. But I was wondering, like, at what point are we going to get back to the redemption feature back on the main page? I know we've discussed it before, and also the margin, the trade and pay on margin for a dollar. Now,
yeah.
I know, like I said, we've discussed it before, and I know the dev team needs time to implement all these things. So I'm trying not to just keep continuing bringing it up. But do we have any ETA of when some stuff is happening? Now that we are past the second quarter.
Well, stuff is definitely happening, and I think John Light, if you'd like to address that question.
So the redemption feature is coming out in the next release, which is going to be very soon. And the margin trading feature is on hold for right now because we're prioritizing work on migrating other features from Sovryn Alpha to the new Sovryn.app. And margin trading might eventually be migrated over. We haven't decided when or if that'll happen and in what form. In particular, because it looks like most of the margin positions and trading activity that happened, or that's out there, is actually old activity. And so it's hard to justify prioritizing something that people aren't actually using very much right now.
So, John, just on that point, One Digit refreshed his analysis of that, and he believes that about a third of margin positions were created over the last 6 months. I don't know if you're aware of that. So there is a question around margin trading, how best to consider it and present it. Of the people on the call now, if you could like raise a thumbs up or something, if you have at any time used margin trading. Okay, so that's I think about 3 people on the call, and I didn't see T-Bone. You didn't seem to raise Interferez. T-Bone, you didn't seem to raise a finger.
No, I didn't. I'm on mobile, and I'm not really
All right.
good with it there.
So,
But I have used margin trading, and I also was looking forward to possibly using margin trading with dollar. And I've been kind of waiting around trying to see if dollar was coming online. But like I said, I realized like some of these things just takes time, and I know the dev team can't do everything all at once. So
yeah, so we have about 15 people on the call right now, around half of whom say they've used margin trading. And Ngande, if you can ask the same question in the chat about whether or not they would expect to use margin trading again in the future, that would be interesting. Because it's interesting to try and assess what level of user demand we would have with that. One thing that I would be very interested in, and this is obviously sort of off topic from this conversation, is if you have used margin trading, it would be very cool if you could reach out to myself or John Light, or even in the general channel, any way you find, and so that it would really be helpful to try and understand how you guys use margin trading, why you use margin trading, and how we can improve margin trading. Otherwise, it's very difficult to develop in a vacuum. So anyone who's used margin trading or is interested in margin trading, please reach out, like DM me. I'd love to have a conversation. Let's bring this call to a close first, and then we can stay on for a conversation around margin trading. All right. Are there any other points related to zero governance that anyone would like to raise? Going once.
I did have one quick question.
Yes.
With the dollar lending pool. I see that the supply APY has gone up to 3.6. Now I recognize that the actual dollars that are in that pool is relatively small or are small, and so I guess I'm wondering, where are those dollars being borrowed? What venue are we utilizing those dollars?
I think it's an excellent question. But one possibility is that people are borrowing those dollars in order to purchase more Bitcoin. We know that has typically been one of the primary drivers of borrowing in the platform. And if you think about an origination fee of 5% and a borrowing fee of 3.6%, it's actually more attractive to borrow right now from the legacy lending pool rather than from zero. And that will become easier in some ways with margin trading, but there is an opportunity to have sovereign dollars that you hold, deposit them into the sovereign dollar lending pool and earn not insubstantial yield. Probably 3 times what you would earn in a bank account, while maintaining a very similar level of liquidity, so long as utilization rate remains, below 70%. Okay. Any other points? If you do have an additional point, you can raise your hand or write in the community chat here. Going well? Yes. They seem to be related more to the margin trading. All right, so going once, going twice, going 3 times. I think, given that we can bring the official call around zero governance to a close with a current recommendation of no change, plus a recommendation to reduce the frequency of these meetings to once per month. And with that, I think we can end the recording.
All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm going to hit stop on the record button. And so thanks you all for joining. Thanks for your participation. And now we'll just commence the offline, unrecorded by me portion of the call. If some of you would like to continue it. So thanks, everyone. Stay sovereign.